Hey, this is Cavallo from datingfire.com and datingadviceguru.com. If you're in a relationship with a guy, you might be wondering what are the stages that a relationship goes through. After all, you want to know where you stand with this guy. There are 4 stages that you need to go through in every single relationship that gets serious, and you definitely want to recognize each of them as you go through them. So that's what we're talking about today, the 4 stages of a relationship. And before we start our engines and race off on the track, let's make sure we take care of the big 3. Make sure you like and subscribe to the videos. Hey, if you like this, why wouldn't you do that, right? Turn on that little bell indicator next to the subscribe icon. That's for notifications so you know when the next one comes out. And if you have any questions or if you want to suggest a video or any of that stuff, post it down in the comments below. Now, the reason you need to know what those stages are in a relationship is because, first of all, you need to know what stage you're in, right? So you can plan accordingly. And you don't want to make the mistake of thinking that you're in a more advanced stage in that relationship and, well, maybe you're not, and then screw the whole thing up. Because the biggest mistake you can make in a relationship is to think you're actually further along with him than you actually are. A lot of women do this and they end up ruining the relationship because they assumed they were more serious than it actually was. Now, I'm going to help you avoid that mistake right here and now. So keep in mind, though, that different couples are going to spend more or less time in each of the stages. I'm even going to tell you about how much time you should be spending in them. So there's no right or wrong. There's only your experience. But generally speaking, you should never rush any of the stages. The more you take your time with each one of them, the more likely you will make it to the next one. As a matter of fact, one of the best bits of advice I can tell you is take your time. Go slower than he's going and you'll probably get him. Don't try to map these stages to the zodiac, what your fortune teller or psychic told you, or any other method. You should always be using your thinky little brain as much as you can during the process of romance, because trust me, your emotions are going to be there anyways. Just balance the two. Relationships already have far too much emotion in them, and you have to balance that out with smarts. Oh, and something else to remember is that even if you don't recognize all of the stages, you still go through them, even if they don't seem to have a hard boundary that tells you, hey, you just left that stage and now you're in a new one. Trust me, they're still happening. All right, let's start right off with stage number 1, which is hearts and romance. This is the romance stage of the relationship. Every single relationship goes through this phase. Some even call this the honeymoon stage because it's that early part where everything is just, it's amazing between you guys. And somewhere inside, we recognize it can't last, right? We know that it's just too much. It can still be fresh and fun, but it can't be quite this passionate forever. It starts out a bit awkward and then it gets pretty hot and heavy. This is also the highest energy part of the relationship. It's the most draining part. Everything's dialed up to 11 in every single way. Your emotions run high, your excitement runs high. You feel like you're floating on clouds. Everything in life seems brighter and more vivid. Your emotions are also more volatile. It feels like you're on some kind of crazy new drug. And you actually are. You're high on love 24/7. Yeah, this is the stage where love hormones start to cement the feelings of bonding between you and your loved one. And there are a bunch of these chemicals in your system. There's oxytocin, there's adrenaline, there's vasopressin, there's testosterone, there's estrogen, there's serotonin, there's dopamine. Yeah, it's kind of a busy little cocktail in that brain of yours when you're in the throes of romance. Now, the reason for all those chemicals in your brain is so that you will form a lasting bond with him. Something that lasts long enough for you two to get together, mate, and have kids. Now, of course, this is the biological response, not the intellectual response you might have thought was going on. You might have thought this was just you thinking your way into love. No, not at all. The biggest mistake that couples make is to think that they have conscious control over the beginning stages of romance. Nothing could be further from the truth. Love is mostly an emotional, physiological process. It is not a thinking process. In fact, we're really only paying attention to warning signs when they come up, and they got to be pretty big to stop you, right? It's very rare that the man or the woman are looking at the red flags or evaluating the relationship based on what they really want. They're paying attention to the yum little physical sensations that go with chemistry. Most of the start of a relationship is on autopilot, and that's why this stage is so very dangerous. And I'm just thinking to myself, I can't believe I just used yum in this video. If you don't take a conscious step to really think about what's going on in your relationship, it's very likely that you're going to find yourself in love with somebody that may not be a very good fit. Here are some of the other characteristics of this first stage. You always want to see them or be around them. The first order of business is always lust, right? You feel constantly driven to your sexual desires with him. Chemistry reigns supreme. All you ever want to do is see each other and touch each other, which of course re-triggers all those love chemicals in your brain, making you even more attached and wanting it more. It's a total spiral out of control. The next part is the positive focus that you feel during this stage. You're completely focused on how great this person is for you, and very little time is spent looking at the differences that you're probably ignoring. You ignore their flaws, and pretty much all that you can see are the good things about the relationship. During this stage, you are highly sensitive to him pulling away from you or becoming distant in any way. It throws you into complete panic mode. Now you have to watch out for this, because you might wind up getting stuck in a relationship you really shouldn't be in because you're just getting reactive to that panic. You'll find that you're more concerned with not losing this guy instead of wondering whether or not he's the right guy for you in the first place. Oh yeah, and that early stage, you don't fight a lot. And this seems like this must mean, well, you're meant to be together. You interpret that as a sign. No, the reality is that you will be avoiding conflict during the early stages of any relationship, including ones that start to feel like love. We all try not to fight so that we can see if there's potential for the romance to grow, right? Plus, we really don't want to burst our bubble or break the whole fantasy as it's going on. But this is very unrealistic and it's unsustainable. Every relationship has to land on solid ground eventually. If you're not coming into any disagreements, you're avoiding them. Every relationship has to wake up and smell the reality of connecting meaningfully. Stage 1B, yeah, there's a kind of a little sub-stage here. Things are now officially sexy. This is probably the one boundary you notice when you cross. This is the place where you start to forge a sexual relationship. It's a pretty important stage of the relationship, and I have to point it out. And I also have to note that I usually don't address any of the relationships that function on abstinence before marriage. It's just not realistic anymore, if it ever really was. If that's your thing, it's fine, but just recognize that this can change the way that these steps progress with your particular relationship. It's nearly impossible to keep moving forward with a relationship without some kind of sexual contact. When you have sex, you change the nature of the relationship, and it's changed for good. As a matter of fact, most of those love chemicals from stage 1 get released in your brain before, during, and after sex. Now, the real mistake with step 1B, which is when you finally do have sex, is to go there too soon. You gotta be sure you're ready to take this step with someone. Make sure you have at least a basic understanding of where they want to go with a relationship. Jumping into bed with someone is not how you force a relationship to move forward towards commitment. In fact, not knowing how to handle this stage can often ruin it. It'll push a guy away into an early breakup. Now, this leads us to the next step, which is stage 2, the bubble pops. This is probably the hardest phase of love for most couples to make it through. This is the disillusionment stage. This is when you start seeing the flaws in your relationship. And it usually starts to happen when you get used to the regular sex and the physical affection of your loved one. Once it starts to normalize like that, well, the power of those love chemicals starts to wane a little bit, and you start to regain control of your rational mind. Uh-oh. The only problem here is that if you find flaws that are big, you're probably addicted to this person, and it might be a little too late in some ways. They may be addicted to you too, and that cements you into a relationship that probably should end. This stage is also called the disappointment phase and the stage. We feel a certain level of disappointment that the relationship can't maintain that high that we started with at the first stage, right? This stage can take about a year for most couples. That's right, you got to work through and spend most of the time working through those differences. They may also be working on their communication. If they're relatively mature people, they should be, and even if you're not, that's where you learn how to communicate, is in this particular phase of the relationship. First stage is easy, you're just boinking. Second stage, you gotta talk. And if you're not mature, well, you're probably just gonna keep fighting until you break up, unless you learn better habits. The unfortunate side effect is when you break up and then you only blame it on the other person without learning. If you carry those issues into the next relationship, you'll do it again and again and again. Here's a good old quote from our good buddy Cavallo. Good relationships can have their challenges, but if you're communicating with integrity, they're not that difficult. The first challenge of this stage is that you're probably still trying to avoid arguments. It's a huge mistake when you try to avoid conflict. Conflict is necessary as a catalyst for driving the relationship deeper and learning how to communicate better. See how this stuff ties together? When we work together through our arguments and we work through those arguments constructively, we create a pattern of reliable connection with our partner, which then makes us feel safer in their presence, and that becomes an upward spiral. This is especially true for men who really need a sense of safety in order to reconnect and stay connected with a woman. Remember, avoiding disagreement points back to your insecurities, not a weakness in the relationship. The second challenge is making mountains out of molehills. Something else that many couples do is that they mistake the small stuff that they do disagree about for being big stuff. Most of the things that you argue about aren't even all that important in the big picture. But the fact that you're arguing at all starts to shake you up, right? It starts to rattle your cage, like, oh my God, we shouldn't be having conflict if this is the one. And then this challenges your ideas about what a healthy relationship actually should be. Challenge number 3 is not finding the common ground to pull you back together. Couples that do not find their ability to pull together during difficult times, they typically break apart. Again, they may mistake their disappointment phase as we're incompatible instead of just a disillusionment about that whole love chemical thing. In order to make your relationship work and move forward, you got to take off those rose-colored glasses and accept the fact that love and romance is nothing like fairy tales. Happily ever after is a fantasy for those who aren't ready or willing to grow. If you work on your communication and your trust, you'll make it through this stage with no problems. Then you go to the next stage, which is stage number 3, steady the boat. If you can make it through the challenges of the disillusionment phase, well, now you're ready to steady that boat and get stable. This is the time you will actually build your stability for the years to come. Now, if you manage to keep seeing each other and still feel attracted to each other while you mostly get past your disagreements, you're in the stabilizing phase. In fact, this is really the home stretch. It simply requires you to continue working on your trust, your communication, and maturing the relationship. One of the challenges in this particular phase is wanderlust. This is also a challenge in all the stages, but it shows up here typically first. If you've been able to make things work, sometimes you find that the calmness seems almost boring, right? Some of us do thrive a little bit on that drama. You might mistake the pleasant peace that you're experiencing for boredom. They found that many of the cultures that are based on media and entertainment, the United States is definitely one of them, and unfortunately a lot more now, they find that these people believe that love should be like a romantic comedy movie. All excitement and adventure all the time. Nothing ever gets ordinary or boring or plain. And so when they find themselves at peace or relaxed in a relationship, they start to wonder what's wrong. And then their eye starts to wander as they wonder, where did that fantastic excitement that we had in stage 1, where'd that go? Where did it disappear to? I want it back. And they never realize that this is the time to actually deepen the relationship. Wanderlust is when we start looking around for something new to fill that sense of excitement we had. There's a counterpoint to this wanderlust though. You're also actually able to realize that to start again, you'd actually have to go through all that work and struggle getting through the disillusionment phase. So that kind of balances things out after a while. You start to learn what your patterns are. And as long as you keep that communication and connection close to both your hearts, again, it's not a problem. The next challenge of this phase is routine. Now that the chase is over, things seem kind of ordinary. The relationship might even seem kind of routine. You start to see more little peaks of the real person underneath. You spend more time together doing less. You start to feel more comfortable together. You let your routines kind of start to mesh, right? Now, this is not to say that the routine is all bad. It actually feels good to get to a place where you don't have to ride the roller coaster of romance all the time. Constant maintenance, all that energy. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Most mature couples figure this out for themselves. If you're young or you're not all that mature, you might find yourself needing to jump back out into the dating market to get that thrill, that excitement again. Now, these challenges are often offset by a sense of steadiness that you feel. Once you feel that boat start to really settle and become calm, you're going to feel that you have an investment in each other that's now starting to pay off. And finally, stage number 4, long-term commitment and partnership. This is the last stage of a relationship. It's when you have fully matured your feelings and communication into a healthy long-term relationship. Now, this doesn't mean that the challenges are over, not by a long shot. Very few couples ever make it this far in a relationship, by the way. Even if they get married, they still don't get there. And you're probably saying, but Carlos, isn't marriage a commitment? Does that shock you? Again, we assume that if a couple has been together for a long period of time or they get married, that means they must have figured something out and they must be doing well. Not really. As a matter of fact, not at all. It just means that they figured out a way to stay together in spite of all the things that aren't working out. So even if the divorce rate never climbed again, it's not reassuring to know that less than 1 in 2 marriages will stand a chance of lasting. Really think about that. There was a comedian that once said, would you ever do anything that had such a high potential for complete heartache, heartbreak, misery, knowing that you had a 50-50 chance? I mean, imagine if your skydiving instructor told you that your parachute only opens about half the time. Do you still want to get on that plane? And the reason that relationships don't work out have nothing to do with probability. You're not really flipping a coin in a relationship. It's all skill. What most people are doing when their relationship doesn't work out is they're failing to grow. They simply can't find it within themselves to keep the relationship alive and vibrant by keeping themselves alive and vibrant. Instead, what most people do is they use relationships as an excuse to stop changing, and they settle into a complete rut. Remember, the true long-term commitment is not something you do just once. You do it every single day in a long-term committed relationship. Whether you get married or not, every day you choose to stay with a person, you're making that choice again and again and again to commit. Whether you consciously do it or not, whether you say it out loud or not. But here's something important. Do you know what the most potent, powerful ingredient in love is? It's the one that overrides almost everything else. It's the one ingredient that will carry you through all 4 of those stages no matter what. It'll get you all the way and past the altar in a good relationship. If you have this ingredient, you have the fuel for a powerful sense of passion between you and him. If you don't have it, it's very unlikely that your relationship will survive. So what is this ingredient, and do you have it? The magical ingredient for passionate love is desire. Desire is the force that moves a man to overcome himself and his limitations for you. Desire is what makes him chase you. Desire makes some men get down on their hands and knees to beg you for forgiveness when he's done something wrong. Desire makes him commit to a woman instead of just ignoring her or calling her when he finds it convenient. Interestingly, most women don't know how to create desire in a man. Do you? I mean, it's no shame if you don't. Irresistible desire for you that makes you know deep in your bones that he loves you. When he feels this kind of irresistible urge, he will cross any ocean, move any mountain, he'll do anything to win your love. Yeah, just kind of like fairy tales in a lot of ways. The reality, though, is it doesn't happen from a prince. Do you know how to create that kind of desire in a man? Because if you don't know how to do it, that's what I show women how to do. Unfortunately, a lot of these skills were never taught to women. The unfortunate fact of reality for a lot of people these days is that we didn't grow up with parents who were the best examples of this stuff. As a matter of fact, we never got to witness how the courting process actually started between our parents or between any of the healthy relationships. You might watch them in movies, you might see them on TV, but that doesn't mean they're real. As a matter of fact, that actually means they're not real. That's why they're on TV. There is a fact here that most people, especially men, I started teaching men years and years and years ago, back in the early 2000s, how to be more attractive to women. And I found an amazing number of them had no idea what masculinity really was, how to be a real man for a woman, how to be chivalrous, how to do the things that women really wanted. Well, I still teach them today, but I focus more on helping women because I know you have the power to make real change in relationships. What you might not know is that most men are perfectly happy letting you run the relationship and make it what it needs to be because we trust women to do that. We know intuitively that women have the better skills when it comes to this. But if you don't have the ability to create that desire in him, you may never get off the launching pad with him. I mean, do you know the real reason that men run from relationships? Why they disappear and ghost you? Do you know how to know if he's actually still interested in you, so you know those warning signs? Do you know how to tell if a guy's afraid to commit? Well, you got to know these things if you're going to make the relationship work. You got to know the 7 mistakes that women make that make men pull away, because that's the number one problem. The second a man pulls away, you can be sure he isn't feeling that desire anymore. Hey, you know what? I've got a free ebook for you to tell you just that. It's called The 7 Mistakes Women Make. You can get it for free at the link you see below me here, datingfire.com/free book. That's datingfire.com/free book. Go on over and check it out there. You'll learn about these mistakes in detail. I'll tell you exactly what it is that makes men go, wait a second, and makes that desire basically stop dead in its tracks. You got to know this because it's the one thing that most women never learn. The easiest thing to do is to stop doing the mistakes you're already making. If you don't do that, then you've pretty much got it made. As long as you aren't making big mistakes, most guys will just go along with it. They'll keep going. They'll follow this romance all the way to the end, and they'll do it happily. But that's the one thing you got to avoid, is him thinking, uh-oh, this isn't right. I know this because I'm a guy, and that was the one thing that made me stop every single relationship that I was ever in, was seeing signs just like these. When I found the woman who didn't make these mistakes, and in fact understood why these mistakes did what they did, that's when I decided to stick with it, and I married her. Are you curious? Well, you should be. Go on over to datingfire.com/free book and get that right now. And you know what? Before you run away, before you go watch another Carlos video, first of all, go to that link. Go to datingfire.com/free book and get that book for yourself. But also, make sure you do the big three. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you like this video, you're here right now, well, you must have. Come on, dude. Subscribe. Get on that thing. And turn on notifications so you know when the next one comes out. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, down in the comment section below, go for it. Hey, this is Carlos Cavallo from datingfire.com/free book. Go on over and get your book, and I'll be talking again next time. As always, live and love with passion.